السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله اما بعد اعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Brothers and sisters, before getting into the theme of the Khutbah, I ask that we remember our brothers and sisters throughout this ummah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ who may be suffering, whether we know the cause of their suffering or not. And it's just a continuing travesty. It is an insult to humanity, what is going on without any kind of real intervention, what is going on in occupied Palestine and Gaza, and now what is going on in Lebanon. Because if you don't know, the very similar tactics that have been taken in Gaza by the Zionist regime of Israel are now being implemented in Lebanon, in southeastern Lebanon, where journalist camps clearly marked with cars out in front, with big press markings, with tents that are marked for journalists, are now being bombarded. And journalists are being killed, those who are trying to bring to the world what is happening, so that the outrage that someone like myself feel by having so little capacity other than dua to try to affect what's going on in that part of the world. But these journalists who are risking their lives, knowing that they're risking their lives to bring the stories about what's going on, the suffering of little children being recorded, that I wish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would take my soul. Just bring me back to him, because I don't know how much more I can stand of this kind of carnage, word I'm using, the kind of death and destruction that's going on all around me. So, oh Allah, my dua is just bring me back to you. So, brothers and sisters, let us not forget in any one of our prayers, don't forget throughout the course of the day to remember our brothers and sisters who are suffering at the hands of a common enemy to mankind. It's not just an enemy to the Palestinian people, but to any right-thinking human beings. Who else on this planet would target little children with sharpshooters to shoot them in the head? While so many of the medical people, the relief workers in Gaza, are saying that the little children that we are carrying their dead bodies, there's so many of them, it could be no accident. They're being targeted. 3, 4, 5-year-old babies being targeted by sharpshooters. What threat can these little children have to any person other than to throw a rock? So let us remember the suffering of our brothers and sisters. Remember them while we make Jumah in the relative comfort of this masjid. Remember our brothers and sisters whose masjids have just been bombed out, turned completely into rubble. Brothers and sisters, the Prophet Muhammad and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it very clear that the dua of the oppressed, those who are suffering at the hands of unjust governments, of unjust individuals, that the dua of the oppressed, there's nothing standing between that dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So take advantage of what we have been promised. Pray for those who are being oppressed. Pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't bring that kind of oppression amongst the Muslims and just human beings in this part of the world. Brothers and sisters, I'm not going to take much of your time. But you know, in times like this, it helps for me to just reflect upon this sunnah, this sirah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It helps to look at the most favored human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on this earth and will ever have on this earth, the kind of suffering that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through, and those who were with him, the kind of suffering that they went through as well. Oftentimes when we think about the sirah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we don't think about so much that kind of human suffering that he went through. He's the favorite of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when we just take a moment to just reflect upon that, and I want to do that in just a couple of instances, doing this Khutbah today, but when we do that, we learn that oppression and pain for those who are being victimized unjustly. It's not a punishment. It's not because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is necessarily angry with whoever is experiences, whatever individuals or group of people, whatever their experiences. It's not necessarily that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry with them. And this life of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in so many instances, has given us a clear example of this. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Quran, and we find it in a number of prophetic traditions, that conditions were so difficult during the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam after receiving revelation, that the difficulties were so great and intense that it wasn't just the Muslims who were with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, and the hadith literature and seerah literature goes on to point out to us that not just the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was wondering and trying to figure out, are we going to be in a permanent state like we're in now? That what we're going through at this moment, I don't know if we can stand it much longer. That surely we have to have some relief, or either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just going to take us back to himself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it comes down to us in the Quran, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at various times, and one time in particular, that the conditions were so bad that the Prophet ﷺ and those who were with him were crying out, when will come the help of Allah? That even the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the conditions were so intense at this time that the human side of him, he was a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was the Rasulullah. But he had human feelings and human emotions. So even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at a moment in his prophetic history, was crying out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They weren't just asking each other. They were crying to Allah. When will come the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered this question from his messenger. And verily, the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always near. It may not come right when you think, I can't take it no more. When will this help come? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was reminding this ummah that there's no condition that we will all be tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing, no matter how difficult it may be and seem at that time, there's nothing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help is not close in coming. That the Nasrullah, the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always near. Brothers and sisters, one of these times, and we've discussed this incident in other khutbahs, but one of these times, and Allah forgive me if I'm stating it at the wrong reference point, but this part of an ayah was revealed at the time when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the Bani Hashim, those who were Muslim and those who were not Muslim, but they were just part of the same tribe of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, had been exiled out of Mecca. Now, conditions were hard enough just living in a desert city like Mecca, but no, get out, just get out into the desert. Let me see how you survive outside the desert. The order was put out by the leaders of the Quraysh. You can't trade with these people. Don't bring food to them. Don't bring water to them. If you are married to their daughters, divorce them. Brothers and sisters, at this particular time, and this went on for 3 years, from the 7th year of Revelation to the 10th year of the mission of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, the Muslims were forced outside of Mecca. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have it during this time, there were those who were not as ruthless and heartless as those who were the leaders of the Quraysh at the time. And some of them, it's reported in the Sirah literature, would sneak out at night and bring food and water so that their brethren and their tribes, the ones that they know were a part of them, a part of this Meccan society, that they wouldn't just starve to death out in the desert. The stories come from this part of the history of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. This was a time of almost starvation of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu during this 3-year period, and the Sahaba, those who were with them, who were outside, out here in the desert, and being cut off from any kind of trade or any kind of help, official help, from those who were still living inside the city. Brothers and sisters, even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu cried out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this Nasrullah. When will this help of Allah come to us? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded in revelation to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu that verily indeed the help of Allah is always near. No matter what your condition may be, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help is always near, that this relief that you know that you need, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this help will be there, it's close to coming. Don't feel as if you are at this alone. Brothers and sisters, in another instance, and this was basically about 8 or 9 years after having been exiled out into the desert outside of Mecca, that the beloved wife of the Prophet Muhammad Khadijah, died. You know that she was the first one to accept the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad. She was the helpmate of the Prophet Muhammad. She was his support. She was his best friend, the one that he could confide his most intimate secrets with. That Khadijah, may Allah be pleased with her, died during this particular year. This was 1 year before the hijrah to Medina. There's also a time, as we remember from this history, that the Prophet Muhammad's uncle, Abu Talib, who was even at the point of death, never accepted Islam, but always supported his uncle, Muhammad sallallahu. And because of his stature in Meccan society, he was able to keep some of the torture off of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. And so this happened in this year, this 1 year before the hijrah. Brothers and sisters, we find in the Hadith literature that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, in talking about tests that you and I will encounter to varying degrees while we're on this earth, attempting to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of our ability. that the Prophet Muhammad said that wondrous is the affair of the believer. For there is no good for him, for there is good for him or her in every matter. And this is not the case with anyone except the believer. If he is happy, he thanks Allah, and that is good for him. If he is harmed, he shows patience, and there is good for him. That every experience has beneficial outcome if one is patient with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained for us at any given time. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنات وفي الاخره حسنات وقنا عذاب النار. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him and seek His assistance and His protection against the evils of our minds and against the unsuccessfulness of our actions. Whosoever Allah guides, no one can lead astray. And whosoever Allah causes to err as a result of his own actions, no one can lead the way. For Allah help those who help the religion of Muhammad, so forth and so on, and countless amongst those. O Allah, disappoint those who try to disgrace the religion of Muhammad, so and do not master those. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us assurances throughout the Quran that knowing that we are not recipients, direct recipients, that we would receive revelation or assurances from Allah Ta'ala about it's going to be okay. Be patient with what you're going through. Because if you are patient and continue to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with any difficulty or distress, it's going to be okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فإنما العسر يسرا إنما العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. And it just means that for indeed, with every difficulty there is ease. And then Allah repeats, with every difficulty there is ease. So when you are relieved of your immediate task, still strive hard, and to your Lord, let your longing be directly with Allah. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in these short verses, gives us an assurance that if we are patient, we will recognize, no matter how difficult our circumstances may be, that we'll recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the ease, the ayahs are not translated after every difficulty, is with. Allah is telling us that He is so merciful to us that if we are patient and only turning to Him for help and assistance, that the ease that we would want to have, the ease that we're begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, is so close that it's as if the difficulty and the ease are coming at the same time. With every difficulty, there is ease. And so our challenge, living at a time without that direct connection to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seeing him, listening to him, hearing his instructions, that we are the ones that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that we are his brothers. And the Sahaba, when they heard him say, talking about a distant people, and he's saying that these are my brothers, he's talking about generations after his time, and they questioned him about it. he says, you are my Sahaba. You are my companions. I'm talking about those people who will never, ever see me in this world. They'll never be able to witness my example. They'll never hear my voice, the sound of my voice. They'll never be able to get direct instruction from the lips of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are my brothers. You are my companions. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has made it clear that the ones who will be the best in following the instructions of this deen will be those people. They never heard my voice. They never seen me. They'll come after me, and they will elevate to a point of their practice and attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad would even excel so many of you of my Sahaba. So brothers and sisters, a trademark of the believers is not trying to project the Sahaba in a way other than what they were. Because I just said that even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu at times, the difficulties were so great that he's wondering when will come the help of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu that that help comes with the difficulty. It's not coming after it. But once you are relieved from that immediate challenge, don't go to sleep. Don't just say, well, I'll make salah, I'll get up and I'll pray to Hajj. I'll come to Fajr, I'll come to Isha. And then when the difficulty that you and I may be experiencing, we think it's over, then we just go right back to what we were doing before. I'll fast on Mondays and Thursdays when I'm going through difficulties, because I think that this will bring me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then, when the difficulty has passed, then I won't fast again to Ramadan. I'll get up in the last hours of the night and pray to Hajj. As a matter of fact, I'll get up every night and pray to Hajj, begging and crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve me of the difficulty that I'm going through. But then when it's over, or I think that it's over, I go right back to sleeping throughout the night. I go right back to missing my salah during the course of the day. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands that at the end, when the difficulty, you get relief from it, still strive hard. Don't back up from what you think got you through this particular difficulty. Continue to increase our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even when you think that this, man, I got this obligation. I don't know how I'm going to meet this obligation. It's a legitimate obligation. I have no idea. It's burdensome on me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us ease. And we've been begging and crying to Allah. But as soon as the ease comes, we ease up on our ibadah. We ease up on that which we think got us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So brothers and sisters, let us pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase our iman and give us an understanding of this deen that is useful for us in this world and in the next. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase our iman to the degree that we truly become His faithful servants in good times and in bad. Amen. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not make this ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu an object of test for the disbelieving people. Amen. Brothers and sisters, I have a few quick announcements here. The first one is that, tomorrow at 6 p.m., there will be a graduation dinner here at the mosque. And this is a different kind of graduation than what we had before, because as we mentioned before, we had our first sister or brother to be licensed as a police officer in the Winston-Salem Police Department. Now, I know, as some of you know, we've had a lot of police officers come through here. We may have some sitting here now, but they don't openly profess that I'm with law enforcement. I'm just here to hear what this crazy man is saying. I'm gonna go back and forth and follow in more than what they're doing. But this is a police officer, our sister Medina, is having a graduation dinner from the police academy here in Winston-Salem. And it's the first licensed known police officer who's gone to an academy that we know about in the community. And it's a good thing. You know, don't go to can you fix this ticket for me and all that other stuff. But it's a very good thing that we have someone on the police force. I've been in other cities and I know how they can really help the Muslim community and help individuals within the Muslim community. So if you can make it out, please come out. We will be celebrating her graduation, as it says, the first one that we had. And also on Sunday at 2 p.m., excuse me, the engaging the Quran class will continue. It's an excellent class. I can speak on it now since I've been to the class. It's a very good class. It's only 1 hour, so I'm encouraging the brothers and sisters to come out to this class and future classes that are being planned. Come to the